everyone. This is Mahima. Thanks for tuning in. I'm thrilled today to introduce you to a communication and advocacy expert, Samarth Pathak. He's currently working with United Nations Office on Drugs and Crimes, focusing on education, crime prevention, human rights, social development, and governance. We're eager to learn from his insights and hear his story. Welcome, Samarth, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mahima. It is really an honor for me to be here with you. And I really look forward to a very strong conversation. It is always inspiring to meet great people like you who are doing excellent work, especially in helping others and guiding young people. So this is completely my privilege, and I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And I'm really delighted to have you here. Can you share a little bit about yourself and your career path?
Well, I would love to actually, because my journey has been, I would say, sort of like a rolling stone, and not like the rock band, but actually like a rolling stone. I have always believed a lot in experimentation and, exploring new areas, exploring new paths, finding your own strengths and weaknesses. So my journey, especially in terms of career, has been quite interesting. And this is all thanks to my parents. My father, who was in the Air Force, and we got transferred a lot, so there was a lot of different experiences that I gathered during my life and during my childhood especially. I belong to North India, from Uttar Pradesh, but because my father was in the Air Force, we got transferred a lot, so I've spent a lot of time in South India, my growing up years, in Northeast as well, and in Delhi and other cities. And it has always been a great experience. I think defense services, for children, for children of people who are in the defense, I think it's a very interesting experience because you get to meet a lot of people, you get to interact with a lot of people, you get to change schools, which sometimes is good, but mostly it is bad because you miss out on your friends, and you're always leaving your friends. But then you also meet new friends and new people and new cultures, which I have always found very fascinating. So I would say that spending so much of time in different cities and different places, small towns, big cities, it has been a very good experience for me. And I think from that stems out my firm belief in experimentation and the need to always explore new things and be open to try out new things. And that, I think, reflects a lot in my career, Mahima. I don't know whether you'll believe it or not, but I actually studied science. I wanted to be an engineer. I was an IIT aspirant, so to speak. And, I did my coaching, I studied a lot, science, maths, everything. And I also got through a couple of engineering colleges after my 12th, so I was very happy. But it was at that stage that I realized that maybe engineering was something that I didn't want to do. I don't know why I got that gut feeling. I wasn't really happy. And I was in Delhi at that time, which I believe was a blessing because here you had far more options to explore. Which I think Delhi and the big cities give you that advantage because it opens your avenues. You get to understand what are the different avenues out there. For example, when I was in Hyderabad, Bangalore, the only thing that you could try out at that time, and this is late 90s, early 2000s, was engineering. You could only be an IT engineer, and there was no other sort of career option for a good, intelligent person at that time, unfortunately. But when we got transferred to Delhi and I was in my 12th at that time, I realized there are other options as well that maybe, are interesting avenues. I have always been very interested in writing and, creative sort of stuff. So I applied for journalism, and thankfully my parents were very supportive. My family was extremely supportive about it. So I applied for journalism in Delhi University and I got through. And then we had a sit down meeting at home that, look, you have gotten through an engineering college. It wasn't, of course, an IIT, but you've gotten through engineering, an engineering course. You now have gotten through a journalism course as well in DU, and DU was extremely prestigious. What is it that you want to do? And I would say that I didn't think a lot. I felt a lot. I felt for journalism at that time, and I fell in love with the course outline that was there. And I said that I want to take this chance. I really want to do this. So I got through a DU. I pursued my journalism, and my favorite subject out there was development journalism in graduation. And it was a fascinating sort of field. You got to think a lot, got to write a lot. At that time, I would be very honest, we did not have a lot of tools or technology, that was taught. That usually happens in the multimedia courses. But we did a lot of writing and research and analyzing and sort of doing everything journalism. And I did a lot of internships during that time in the prestigious news channels, print media outlets, and all. Now, after my graduation, and I think I shone, I really studied a lot. I performed very well. And once my graduation was over, the next logical step was usually for a journalism student those days was usually a master's in mass communication from one of the big, universities. You had the Jamia Mass Communication Research Center, which is still, one of the best in the country. We had the Asian College of Journalism, we had Symbiosis, etc. We had different places where we could go. And many of my, I would say, my counterparts, my colleagues, my course-mates usually went into that direction. So that was the next logical thing to do. But I didn't, again, because I wanted to experiment. For me, it didn't make sense to do journalism and then mass communication again, because it would be rather the same course. I mean, of course, with a lot of other inputs, but largely it would be the same stream. So again, I chose to do a master's in a subject which was from the Department of Political Science at Jamia, because I thought that it would be nice to do a subject alongside journalism. It would be nice to get some domain expertise in a field of study, which would be better. And again, it was, I think, a very good thing for me, because I got to learn human rights, different aspects of human rights, politics, governance, public policy, and all. And it was an excellent faculty at the Department of Political Science in Jamia. Jamia remains one of the finest universities, over the last several years. In all rankings, I think Jamia comes at the forefront. And I think that really opened my mind a lot. It was a great environment out there, a lot of room to think, a lot of great professors who could groom you, mentor you very well, and of course my own classmates who were absolutely brilliant in different fields. And this is something that I always, Mahima, tell other young people who are out there right now and studying and exploring and sort of in a dilemma, that one should always go for a master's. You should actually complete your studies, the whole circle of studies. It's always very helpful, if not in terms of professional outlook, it is always good in terms of your personal growth. So I think graduation and then a master's in a subject worked very well for me. And during that time also, I was pursuing journalism, because at that time I was hell-bent on being a reporter. A great reporter like P. Sainath was our idol at that time. He was a great reporter and a great journalist, very inspiring. So I of course continued my work with different magazines and different newspapers, etc. And after my post-graduation, after my master's, I got an offer to work with Reuters Television, which is housed in the Asian News International, ANI. And I got a job as a news producer. And that was a fascinating field again, because now I was in a very, very prestigious place, working as a news producer, writing, researching, creating packages. I worked on a series of reports on Maoist insurgency. I got the chance to break and, of course, pursue a lot of political stories, development stories at that time. And it was during then, after spending 2-3 years in journalism, active journalism after my post-graduation, I realized that I wanted to be on the other side of, the reporting, in the sense that we were always going around with a mic or a notebook, in my case, talking to different people, talking to experts. And I felt the need to actually grow into that expert or that person on the other side who is actually working on these issues that we are trying to cover. So I got a opportunity to meet with the management of a very prestigious think tank called the Energy and Resources Institute, TERI. And the management actually, he was Dr. Pachauri, R.K. Pachauri, a very inspiring person at that time. And he was heading the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And he actually gave me a break and said that, why don't you shift to the public policy space, which is a fascinating sphere. And this was around 2011-12, and I was actually very I was confused at that time, because uh, this was still an unclear space, public policy. Not a lot of young professionals got into this space at that time, and it wasn't very popular, I would say. But the kind of work that he explained to me and the other colleagues at Terry explained to me was very interesting. So I took that plunge again from journalism, completely shifting my sphere to the public policy space, which involved very different work. It wasn't like active journalism that I was used to. And I love journalism still, by the way. I love the thrill, I love the excitement. But this was more slow paced, but you were doing some great work. You were actually getting into research, you were getting into different facets of communication. So I took that plunge, and I learned immensely at TERI, the Energy and Resources Institute, which was primarily focused on climate change, energy, sustainable development in terms of the environmental aspects. And a lot of it was a great experience for me, great learning experience. And I think it was at TERI when we did a lot of projects around community mobilization, around showcasing of the various work that happens in the sphere of climate change, advocating actual issues in front of people, and getting their attention on the things that matter. I think that caught my attention, and I felt that this was my space, because I completely enjoyed my time. Going to office was not a problem. It was like I used to look forward every day to go to office. So within this public policy space, then I was, of course, in the realm of communication, but I explored different think tanks, different organizations that work on different issues. So the common thread in my career so far has been communication, but communication on different issues, which means different organizations. So I have worked with Terry, with the Aspen Center, which worked on foreign policy at that time, with the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. And eventually in 2017, I got the chance to work with the United Nations, which was always sort of an ambition for me. And I always wanted to be in this prestigious organization. So I got a chance to work with the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, which is one entity of the United Nations system. And in 2017, I got through. It was again a very interesting opportunity for me, working in the field of security, crime prevention, youth engagement on these issues, drugs, etc. Very sensitive topics, and using communication to actually mobilize community mobilization, advocacy, etc. So since 2017, I've been at UNODC working on communicating these issues to the general public, on hearing opinions, on getting that two-way communication going, advocating these issues before governments, before diplomats, before other realms of the public sphere, and getting some concrete work done in these areas. And this has been a great opportunity for me so far. But I think the common thread has again been communication, and the fact that I've kept my avenues open, experimenting, exploring new places, understanding where my strengths and my weaknesses lie. I think it is always very useful to know what you can do, but it's also important to know what you can't do, and where you're weak. So that has been sort of my journey in a nutshell. I hope it makes sense to you, but one thing I can assure you is that it has been a very interesting journey so far.
And it's very interesting to hear. So you had such an amazing journey. I think many of us, people in the younger generation, they don't realize that there are so many options out there, and they're not willing to explore. Like you did, you tried engineering, then your family was also very supportive, so you jumped into journalism. And you love it, like still love it, right? But then again, you dropped journalism because you found something else that was more compelling to you. So I think a lot of us are not even willing to try different things. I think you're very happy where you are right now, like working with United Nations, like nothing more prestigious than that, right?
Right.
I mean, like people should be, yeah.
Yeah, Mahima, one thing I would like to just add very quickly there is that, see, a lot of people that even, and especially young people that I talk to, there is a difference between confusion, being confused, and experimenting. It does not mean, it's not as if you are doing something, giving it up, then doing something else, giving it up. It has to, there has to be a sense of logic, where you're going with it. And how that logic comes is whether you feel for that thing or not. You have to give a wholehearted attempt for it. For example, when I was in engineering, I really gave my 100% into that, did it, and then I said, no, I want to do something else. With journalism, I would be very honest. I really love the field. I did everything in that. And, I gave my best always. My peers were very happy. My editors were very happy always, I hope. And, I gave my best and then I shifted to a new place, knowing why I'm doing it. There has to be an interest, there has to be a passion, there has to be the willingness to give everything that you have. So experimenting doesn't mean that you do something and then you forget about it, don't work hard enough. It doesn't mean you're not working hard. You have to work hard diligently. But experimenting means that you should be able to try out new things, give your best in it, fail if you have to, but know that you are doing this, right? So there has to be a willingness, a passion towards it. So that there's a difference between confusion and experimenting. And
Exactly.
experimenting is what we have to go for.
Yeah, definitely. Like, whatever you're doing, you should actually give it your 100%. That is very true. But then, if you find that's not your passion as well, maybe, you can try different things. You have just one life, right? It's like it's not giving up. You can try different things, right? You can earn different with different things. So it's not as if you're just being lazy. Being
Correct.
lazy is completely different than, trying different things. It's completely normal. But people don't, think about that I can earn that way as well. I should try that, find my passion. But yeah, we just, go with the education and we're stuck with that. So, but it's very interesting to hear your journey. And can you recount some of the most exciting experiences you've had while working? What makes you excited and motivated to continue to do this work?
Well, I've always been, very motivated in the sense that the kind of work sorts of gets me going. If you're getting good work, then it kind of gets me going. As I told you, it's been a very varied career, very, lot of experimentation. And in every field, when I've given everything that I have, there are bound to be very interesting, incidents. For example, I was working with a magazine right at the very early stages of my career, and it used to be a very interesting exercise. I know, people who are in journalism would know this, that every week you sort of have a weekly editorial meeting, where you're supposed to come up with ideas. There's a lot of brainstorming, a lot of ideas that are exchanged. And I have always been very privileged to work with extremely nice bosses, very good editors, very good editorial teams. And one of my editors, right when I was like a cub reporter is a very young journalist. The editor used to give me a lot of opportunities to work and experiment and understand what I'm trying to do. So in one editorial meeting, I remember it was one of my first, and I was told, okay, what is it that you want to do? If you get all the resources, everything that you have, what is it that you would like to cover for our magazine? And I don't know why, I have always been interested in working for the people side of things, human side of journalism. So I said that I want to do a rural sort of a notebook for you. Every month or every 2 weeks, I would go to a village and I'll cover the stories from the village, because how many times can you go around the same city? Nobody's going to the villages and covering. So he smiled at me and he said that, would you be able to do it? And I said that yes, I'll give it a shot. So he said, okay, we give you 6 months and we want stories from you every month or every 2 weeks. Go to a village. You have to find your own village. We won't guide you in any way, but you have a support, but you just go and cover it. And Mahima, you won't believe me, that sort of gave me an insight that, okay, now I've gotten this responsibility. Now I have to fulfill it. It wasn't just an idea. So for 6, 7, 8 months, it actually got converted to almost 1.5 years of doing a regular column for a magazine called the Rural Notebook, where I used to go to villages, explore that village on my own, talk to people on my own. and come up with different stories. So I remember I was in a place near Agra. It's called Firozabad. It's a very small town. And I was in a village near Firozabad during the economic downturn of 2009, 2010, and 2008, 2009. And Firozabad, of course, is famous for the glass bangles industry. And I wanted to understand what is the impact of the downturn on the glass bangle industry at that time, or the glass industry generally. And I went to a village and I sort of met the people and I sort of interacted with them, and I got the sense of a deep impact, deep economic impact. People lost their jobs, people who had really been laid off, they did not know what to do. Many of the glass industry workers actually shifted to the labor industry, working under the Narega scheme. And also it was a very bad state of affairs. And I got that story, I got it published. I you know really got a very good sort of an insight from the people. And I went back when I went back after the publication of the story to the village. I always used to do that. I used to go back to the village, and they said that, look, there was nobody who had come to hear our story, and you are the first person who has come and actually spoken to us about this. So that sort of gave me that responsibility that, look, I'm writing, I'm doing everything, but I also need to find solutions to this. Similarly, at UNODC, I have been working a lot with young people, and that the working with young people has always given me hope that something right is going to happen. One story is that during COVID-19, we launched something called the Lockdown Learners Series because we wanted to engage with young people who were affected by a lot of things. COVID-19 created a lot of bad things around us, things like anxieties, uncertainties, a lot of darkness that we felt because of all the problems that were going around. And young people were disproportionately affected. So we wanted to do something with young people. Uh, so through the Lockdown Learners series, we actually gave young people a platform of action, of mentorship, where they could use their own skills to find solutions to the problems that we were facing all around. And I have one very inspiring story to share. After a lot of sessions that we held with young people, there was one young girl in Uttar Pradesh called Janvi. She stays near Banaras, and she never used to say a single word. She couldn't really express her thoughts, express her feelings before we met her. But after the sessions, she started opening up, she started doing things, and now she's actually speaking. She's actually very confident. She's creating community networks on her own, in her own village. Every time she reaches out to us saying that, sir, what can I do for you? What can I work on? What can I do for you? So that sort of behavioral change that we have seen in her is something that has given me a lot of hope and a lot of happiness about the work that I'm doing. So these are some of the stories that I wanted to share. There are a lot many more, but I think these are concrete examples of what I would say, how change comes in.
Wow, really inspiring. The example of Chandni,
Yeah.
I think you like when you give someone hope, right? I think maybe that was the thing. Like with COVID, everything was locked down and she wasn't speaking. So that line, that hope, if someone has it, it has a huge impact. And
Yeah.
when you see that you're having some impact on someone, it's like nothing better than that.
Yeah.
So,
One more thing. So, usually when it comes to community change or community work or social, impact, people usually think that it is usually going to, say, an underprivileged place or a village or somewhere, and actually doing, like contributing to it or contributing something there, right? That is the perception that we have. But any skill that you have, any talent that you have, any special thing that you are doing can actually create a lot of impact. And one thing that happened with us during the lockdown, for example, is that we used to give a lot of projects to young people saying that, look, what is it that you can do with your own skills? So we had these two young sisters, young girls from Delhi, who came to us, said that, sir, everything is fine and good. We learned everything. It is all great, but we are good at music. That's the one skill that we have. What can we do in terms of community change or social change? And I said, hey, music is something that is a gift. If you have the gift of music, you can create so much. So these young girls created for us an album of songs on gender issues, on peace, on larger harmony and unity in the society. And they created special songs on these issues for us, against discrimination, for example. And it was an album of 5 6 songs that they did for us, composed, written, produced, everything by them. We had a young girl from Punjab in Fagwada who created a rap for us, a rap song on the sustainable development goals, which I think has not happened in India so far. I may be mistaken, but in my knowledge, I think it is the first rap song that has happened on the SDGs, and by a eighth or a ninth grade student. So any skill that you have can be used for larger social impact. Creating awareness, creating advocacy around social issues. So these are the kind of examples that have given me a lot of kick, I would say, in the course of my work.
Really interesting. And we don't generally, people like me, we don't think about such things that, my skill, like maybe, I source. So that is my skill, right? Maybe that could have impact on someone. We just think that, money speaks, like you could
Yes.
donate something, and sometimes we think that we don't have the time, but we have a lot of time. Actually, we waste a lot of time in our lives. Maybe we could do some good work with these social issues, right?
Right.
A lot of us, like if we start doing it, it'll have a huge impact. uh, yeah, thank you so much for sharing this. And how would you describe the social impact sector to a lay person? What is it all about, and what would be the role look what would the role look like for the youth?
For a young person. Okay. So social impact, I think it is fairly straightforward. I think it is clear in the word itself, in the terminology. Social impact means the actions that you do or the work that you do should impact the larger society in some way. There are different issues that we see around us, be it in education, health, environment, climate change, gender, gender disbalance, poverty, food. There's so many issues that you can think about, health. So uh, any work that you do, it should have impact on the addressing these issues for the people, for the larger public. Now there are different organizations that are working around these from you know for several years now, and there's now a graduation, I would say a gradual coming together of these different forces who are working on these. Now, what are these forces? You have the government that largely does all these things, working for public welfare, social impact. You have NGOs or not-for-profits that you must have heard about. A lot of NGOs that do great work on different themes. You have increasingly international organizations coming in, working on these issues. You have the United Nations that work on these issues. You have individual people, like you are doing great work, Mahima, with helping, I would say, with a larger cause of employment or skills building. So there are different people who are working, contributing in different ways. There are children who are planting trees. They are directly impacting the environment in some capacity. Somebody maybe even donating to help somebody else. Any small step that you take actually leads a lot. So what we need and what is happening now increasingly is a coming together of these different forces. And this has given a lot of avenues for young people. That if a young person is interested in contributing with their skills, with their time, uh, with the knowledge that they have in the larger social good, picking up one social theme and working on it, I think now there are greater opportunities. It is, of course, an employment source as well, employment generation source as well, because there's so many young people who are getting to work in these fields, earning. It's not so much as I would say a zero, like you can work here, get a salary, work hard enough, and you can actually contribute to the larger social space or the larger social discourse. How do you do this? It's also called public policy or social impact. How do you do this? I think there are different ways of going about it. You can actually start with research, because there's nothing that you can do without research, without knowing what the challenges, what the problems are. So doing research or analysis is a good start. Advocating or communicating these issues to the larger public through different channels. If you're a good filmmaker or a good podcaster or a good interviewer like you are, or a good conversationalist, good storyteller, you can use communications to actually showcase research, promote the research, start conversations around these themes. Third, you can actually help in public policy development, how policies are made. There are now good avenues for young people to get into the government sphere as well. There are a lot of lateral entries and hiring of consultants that happens in different government entities as well. You have the not-profit sector, you have the research sector, which is very strong. You have the media or the communication sector, which is very strong. So in different ways, you can come together and help in the development of policies. There are also avenues where you can help those policies get implemented, which a lot of NGOs actually do when you're doing the grassroots work or getting to the communities, providing them support. So a lot of policy implementation, is also there where you can contribute. And then finally culminates in policy monitoring or policy evaluation. That what happened? You created this policy, you implemented it. Now what is the result? What has happened? And that leads you back into policy research again. So there are different ways in which you can contribute. For example, I remember at Terry, where I first started, we actually had a film unit as well. Filmmakers who created documentaries and videos around these themes, which was always good. On the other side, we had very strong researchers. We have different research units that work in across different entities. UNODC gets a World Drug Report out, which is like your most concrete source of drug-related information around the world. So basically, you can use your skills, whatever I would say the knowledge base that you have, and look at it as contributing to the larger society. So that I would say gets covered under the social impact space, where you're working for people, not so much for yourself or some self-driven goals.
Very interesting perspective. There's I think you could do any sort of work to create a social impact. And
exactly, Mahima. So anything that you do, be it you may be an engineer, you may be a doctor, you may be a anything that you are doing, lawyer, anything that you are, you can actually you are creating impact, in your own way. In the social impact or the public policy space, what you're doing is you are helping larger number of people, I would say, because your policies, your programs affect a lot of people. It's a scaling up of things. So that way you can also contribute with your skills, whatever you do. If you're an engineer, for example, you can work with an entity that helps in building roads or building sort of systems where people are helped. So social impact space would come under that sphere.
That's great to know. And what does a typical work day look like for you?
It is very varied, very interesting. There are of course dull days as well, where you are mighty bored, I would say. But there are also high intensity days where all you want to do is just get into the thick of things, and it's always exciting getting to know different things. So there are different ways in which day goes. But for me, I think a typical workday would be entering the office around 9:30 in the morning, getting a cup of tea, which is very important to kickstart the day. But then looking at trends, what are happening. So the first thing I do is understand what is happening around the news. What are the recent developments that have taken place, get a scan of different news that has happened, new developments that have taken place. You have to be up to date with the latest developments that are taking place in your sphere, I would say, and generally. So your GK, your current affairs, your news, you have to be up to date with this. So that is how I start. We also then liaise with different government counterparts, different embassy counterparts, for example, different people from the development sector, from the social impact sector. So we liaise with that, we talk to them, we understand what is happening, what their needs are, and come up with communications tools to help advance these topics that are happening. So for example, UNODC works on drugs, crime, things like cybercrime, corruption, terrorism, etc., wildlife crime. So every day there's some issue that needs to be, sort of promoted, needs to be showcased, or there are different projects that we work on which need to be sort of streamlined or, given communication support to. So a large part of the day goes into that sort of work. I also look at youth engagement and youth advocacy. So working with different youth networks, guiding educators, guiding and working with different educators and educational facilitators, sorts of, takes my time. A lot of writing and research goes into it. So I think first, earlier I used to write with the pen because I didn't know how to type a lot, very fast. But now I'm like a pro at this. So a lot of writing, my day goes in writing different things, reports, papers or things like that. And of course then you have come to the advocacy channels. So advocacy channels means social media outreach, or actually issue based outreach with different entities. For example, if a bureaucrat wants to know something more about an issue in detail, then we go to them with presentations, or we go to them with, sort of papers. There are different modalities, but you go and explain an issue to somebody who needs to know and why it is important, creating a sort of a communications channel. So how do we use communications for the larger social impact? That is how a typical day for me looks like: ideating, writing, researching, talking to people, and then actually doing that work on the ground. So it is, of course, a busy day for me usually, but there are, of course, dull days as well as very high intensity, exciting days.
Like, you're creating so much of impact. So amazing. And
I think one thing that is very important in this, I would say, communication space or advocacy space, as we call it, is you have three things. You have to be good at writing or researching, which is very important. Uh, you have to be good with people, so you have to be a people's person. Ideally, you should be happy to meet new people, happy to interact with them, know what to talk, know how to talk. And third, you should have a genuine passion for the work that you are doing. You should know the impact it will create, or the how it is going to help other people. I think a lot of people get frustrated because they don't know how their work is going to help out, or what is the larger vision of their work. So the earlier you figure this out, the earlier you understand or you streamline your work, knowing that at the end somebody's going to get benefit out of it, or somebody's directly helping, getting help because of your work. I think that gives you a lot of confidence in your work. It improves your work. So I think for me, working with the youth or working with educators has been that sort of a space where I can see the result of my actions. I see every day, I see, some young person get better at what they do. So that gives me a lot of confidence in what I do.
that's amazing. And so I've heard you so far, and you said that anyone, whatever skills you have, you can create a social impact. You yourself had a degree in journalism, and then you went into this social impact sector, right? So do you think there's a need for a specific educational qualification, to get into this field? And what would you say is an important base for to have, like, can someone like me with no connections in this line of work still think about getting into this field?
Mahima, I don't know about others, but you certainly, because you are, of course, like a dynamo of talent and skills. So definitely, I think you are like a very good communicator and a very good specialist in communications. And you can, of course, there's a lot of avenues, but of course, you are doing great at what you do. Now, you're right. This is like a very, I would say, a topic that generates a lot of confusion, that whether you need a particular degree to get an entrance into this sphere. Now, traditionally in our education system and in our education space, it is like that, that you get this degree and then that's how your careers and your lives, I would say careers, not only careers, but your lives are aligned like that. That if you have taken a graduation degree in X subject, then your life is set. This is the way that you go. You can't get into some other road. So that is not, in my personal opinion, that is not true in the public policy space. You can actually bring your own skills, your own knowledge, your own background, and contribute very well, in the public policy sphere. In fact, that is what has been missing in this sector as well, because we need people from different backgrounds coming in and doing great work. For me, for example, I pursued I did my, I would say, schooling in the science stream. I moved to journalism, and now eventually I'm working on communications around drugs and crime. So that gives you an idea of how varied this circle is. But what is important are three things, I would say. One is knowledge, domain expertise. Whatever you are studying, whatever you have studied, whatever you have graduated in, you need to have domain expertise. You should be competent, first. So whether it's communication, whether it's research, whether it's one particular, an engineering thing or medicine or anything, you have to be a competent person. You have to know what you are doing, your subject, your core subjects, have complete information around it, complete knowledge around it. And I would say that, okay, there will always be people who will beat you in terms of knowledge, because there's so many knowledge people, they're varied. But you should hold your competence. You should know ki, this is an area that I can work on. Be it whichever field you are in. You may be a musician, but you should know that, okay, there may be better musicians than me. But in my own capacity, I think I'm doing my best in terms of music. So that domain competence has to be there. Second thing is that you should know how your work is going to fit in the social impact space. It's not so easy, because other people cannot do this for you. Unlike other offices or other places of work where somebody can tell you, okay, you have done IT, so okay, you get into coding. That's the kind of trajectory you have. Here, you have to figure out where you fit in the public policy space. So suppose, for example, I did my journalism, and it's not always a good example to give my example, but I'll give you other examples as well. But, I did my journalism, so I knew that my domain is communication. So I should not let go of that field. Tomorrow, if I say that, no, I want to become an energy expert without having any background knowledge about it, I knew I would fail. So my domain was journalism, so I got into communications. There will be better writers than me, better communicators than me. There'll be, better specialists than me. But in my own capacity, I know that I can, I can give 100% in this domain, in this space. So that gives you that competence, that authority, that, okay, he knows what he's talking about. And then you can experiment with different fields. So I knew that whatever organization I go to, whatever stream I choose, whether it's energy, whether it's foreign policy, whether it's security, whether it's crime prevention, whatever it is, the common thread will be communication. So you can experiment with the streams, but the common domain is communication. So that is how you need to figure out. If you're good at music, for example, I'm giving you a theoretical thing. If you're good at music, figure out how your music can help others. Maybe you can take music and gender, for example, and create a blast. There are a lot of places where you can actually look at how you can, create awareness around it. If you're good at filmmaking, you can make all sorts of films. But how about films on wildlife? And we know, there are esteemed directors like Mr. Mike Pandey and others who create that sort of place. You have National Geographic and all. You can use filmmaking for wildlife and create some sort of an impact. So know what your domain expertise is, be competent in it, figure out where figure out your place in the social impact space, how your work is going to contribute, because nobody else can map that for you. People can guide you, people can help you, but you have to eventually find your place. And thirdly and lastly, you should be willing to learn, unlearn, experiment. Know that you may not be an expert in this. So you need to find places where you can get mentorship, you can get guidance, because that you will always need. I have spent, I would say, more than a decade now working in these areas. But I need a lot of mentorship. I need guidance. I keep meeting people, and mentorship and guidance does not always come from your seniors. Increasingly, it is coming from the young people as well, because technology is growing. We have young people who are good at technology. So you should have that willingness to learn, willingness to change your stream, willingness to understand different places. So that willingness to learn has to be there. So in a nutshell, three things are important no matter what your background is: domain competence, a willingness to learn, willingness to experiment, and thirdly, knowing and understanding where your work would be most suitable in the larger social impact space.
That's a very sound advice. Basically, build on your strength. Whatever strength you have, just build on it, and you can create social impact.
Just as an example, if I give you like an analogy, it's a very weird. I don't know whether I should be saying it or not, but it's like a car. That you build your car based on what your height is, what your weight is, whatever it is, so that you can steer your car very well. You can maneuver your car through anything. So you have to build your car. You have to be or vehicle, whatever it is. But it's your car, your life, your journey. So carve that journey very well for you. And if you can create that path for yourself, if you're clear in your head, if you have the competence, sky is the limit for you in this space.
Exactly. And you also mentioned that you have to keep on learning. It is one of the things that I have also learned, even 5 years back, I, used to think that like I've learned a lot. There's nothing more, I should not spend more of my time, try to get more skills. 5 years from that time to this time, like I keep on learning new stuff. I love doing that. You get more skills that way. Like you can help with your job, whatever you're doing, you can do it in a better way. You can, like there's so many things out there to learn. You can never stop learning, basically. Like, so yeah, very, very sound advice. And are there any internships or entry-level roles available within your domain? And how should one go about searching for these roles?
Yeah. So there are different ways in which you can actually look at internships, trainings, or entry-level positions. Even like I would say not entry-level, also even pre-entry level. There are different ways in which you can explore this. In the UN system, of course, for an internship, there are different procedures in place by different entities. Different organizations within the UN system have like a system of how you get an internship. Usually it is that you are a graduate, at least, or in your first year of masters, or you have just graduated, something like that. I mean, you'll figure this out in the call for internships that comes. But usually it is that you need to be a graduate for an internship. In different other entities, you have different non-profits, even the government space, there are different internships available. So one should keep a lookout of these organizations. So how do you figure out organizations? I think we should take a step back. How does a young person interested in this field figure out an organization? It is not like a like a lake full of fish where you just throw a net and एक ना एक तो आपको opportunity आ जाएगा. ये भी होता है. I'll be very honest and candid with you. It happens that you apply to a lot of places, one or two people will respond to you and you get through. But a clever way or an intelligent way of doing this is finding the organizations that match your work, the work that you would like to do, where your interests lie, and whether there are avenues available. For example, if you're good at if you're good at climate, or you're interested in the climate sphere, environment sphere. I mean, of course, UNODC works on wildlife and environment, but it won't make a lot of sense for you if you're working in sense, if you're interested in energy and climate change and all of that. Perhaps working with a UNODC or with an entity that is working on security may not be an ideal position. Although, of course, that is changing, because now increasingly you see climate change threats with security as well. But it is not a clear, I would say, a clear thread, matching these two. So you need to find out first where your interests are, whatever your interests are. If you're working in climate, then look at the organizations that are working in the climate sphere. A simple Google search will help you. Which organizations in India work in the sphere of climate or environment. Then go to their websites. There's a lot of information out there in the different websites, what they work on. For example, you feel that you are a good educator, you're a good person who can work with young people on environmental issues. Look at whether these organizations actually have a youth component there or not. For example, if an organization is working purely on environmental research, it doesn't make sense for you to say that, look, I want to work in your youth wing, because they don't have it and they won't create it specially for you until unless you are like some magic or a miracle happens, which happens. I'll be honest again. So you should keep that for the Almighty. But generally that thread doesn't work like that. So figure out whether an organization has a youth wing or not, so that you work there. So it is always like a, the work, the games that we used to play, matching the different dots, connecting the different dots. That is what you need to do. And at the end of your research, you will realize that, okay, for your stream, your strength, your knowledge base, there are 5, 7, 10 organizations that are out there. Now you reach out to them with ideas, ideally. I always say reach out to them with ideas, say that this is what you work on and this is what I would like to do for you. And sometimes if you have good ideas, people listen. For example, certainly if you reach out to me with a great idea that matches what I have learned, or what I like to hear, uh, I would be very interested in meeting you. So, and there are many people out there. People are always willing to listen, willing to guide if you reach out to them with a good idea and a clear conscience. So you need to do a little bit of background research. Now, in terms of internships, entry level positions, these opportunities are usually advertised. These are very transparent, this is a very transparent process in most in all UN entities, in government organizations, in many non-profits. There's a regular advertisement for jobs, for internships, etc. One other thing that you should also try, and especially for the young people who are out there, you could look at volunteering. Now, volunteering means that you could volunteer for projects that saying that, look, I want to learn, I have done something, and I would like to do this for you. I would like to work with you, learn with you. So I have had a lot of young people, even at the school level, who have volunteered for UNODC's Lockdown Learner Series, for example. A lot of work that they have done on their own level, whatever they wanted to do. In the process, also learning about UNODC's work, learning about how the UN works, what happens, what kind of work is there, and their work has been showcased on UN platforms as well. So it's a very good win-win for everyone. So you could look at volunteering for different organizations, including the UN, including the UNODC. So volunteership is one. Internships and openings are something that are advertised on the portals. But there are people there to guide you, and I'd be very happy to help you as well. I'm always available on LinkedIn, Facebook, wherever. So please feel free to reach out. But there are other people also out there. So you need to do a little bit of research, find out opportunities, find out again where you fit in the social impact space, come up with ideas, and you will 100% find a listening ear.
That's a very interesting take, actually. So, people do reach out to me that, how should we go about searching for jobs? And I always tell them that, reach out with a personal message, go to LinkedIn and reach out with a personal message instead of just clicking on apply. That doesn't work. Obviously, if you get lucky, but that's that's just again 1 in a million chance that, one day you'll get lucky. There are a lot of people out there searching for jobs, but if you build an idea, right? Get an idea, do your research, build your idea, and then reach out to someone that will obviously you'll have an impact there. That if you have an interesting idea, the other person will hear you out and give you the opportunity.
Right. And this is like an assurance, because Mahima is a dear friend, but this is an assurance from my side that if any of you would like to reach out to me on LinkedIn or wherever, Facebook, wherever, I'll always be very happy to guide you, not just in terms of the kind of work that you are doing or the kind of work that you want to do, but also in the basic stuff, in the applications and all. And of course, Mahima has been doing a great job at it, so please do reach out to her. But you also have one, I would be very happy to help as well.
That's great to hear. Yeah. And when it comes to earning, what can one expect when starting out in this journey? And what can one expect to make after gaining some experience?
Right. It's a very tricky thing. I'm not in the HR, so I'm not the most equipped to answer this. But I know from my own experience that if you're doing generally in whichever field you are, whether it's the social impact space or whichever field, three things, as I told you before: domain competence, having that passion to work, having the passion to engage with people, and third, honesty. If you have these three things in place: domain competence, honesty, and the willingness to work with people, having a pleasant disposition, having a clear conscience, being good generally, these three things will get you very far. So it is a journey, like you said, Mahima. It is a journey. Journey begins with one step, one small step. So even, here, even at the entry level, it may not be as good as, you may find in a corporate or somewhere, but eventually, with your work, sky is the limit. As I tell you, there are different avenues people are working on. This is a growing field, I would say. There are now different concepts that have come about which I had not heard of when I was, growing up, or when I was in college. Things like social entrepreneurship, or things like social impact bonds, or social impact investing, social impact, the whole social impact space generally. I think it is a very, very growing sphere. There are a lot of good people who are doing great work out there, a lot of very good opportunities that are opening up in academics, in governments, in UN, in other places. For example, in the UN system, I don't know if you know this, but last year there was the General Assembly approved, I would say, in a way, the creation of a UN Youth Office, which is a huge thing. It will be like UNICEF, UNESCO, UNODC, a UN Youth Office separately, which is a huge deal. So these are different dynamics in which this sphere is working, especially for young people who are, good, competent, skilled. There is a large, I would say, many opportunities that are coming, and eventually, when you grow, the sky is the limit. Provided that you have the willingness to learn, you have the willingness to try out new things, and you have good ideas that actually help people. And that happens once you start working, once you start understanding where your strengths are. You can also, then develop those ideas, develop that knowledge base also. So I would say starting is slow, but the ride is very, it's like a roller coaster. Roller coaster goes at a slow pace, and then it gathers speed eventually. So that is how it works in this industry as well.
Yeah, I think it's true for almost
All
professions. Yeah. So once you gain your experience, the sky is the limit. But I think, like, even with me, when you start out, it's like you get frustrated when you're not earning more, but it's experience that counts. Like, once you've learned your stuff, you build your strength, you are as good as you can get, and try and learn more and more so you can, develop your skills more. Learning is a never ending process.
Yes.
So,
One
yeah.
thing that is like I would say, an add-on. Salary is one thing, money is good. You're working, whatever you're doing. There's a lot of, I would say, two things that you get in this sector that are very special, which I feel need to be told. One is that there's a lot of personal growth. I mean, after some time, you'll realize the kind of person that you have become is unimaginable. It's something that you feel, that you feel the growth that you have, you feel the skills that you get, the public speaking that you're doing. This, for example, I don't know whether you'll believe it or not, but in school I used to be a very shy person. I could not speak to people, I could not come on the stage, you know and I see children now, I see students now who are very, very confident on stage, and I always say that, shit, yaar, if I was, sorry for using that word, but if I was on stage at that time, I was so confident, I may have been a different person now. But I have seen the growth in my life also, the kind of person that I've become. You feel empathetic towards people, you feel compassionate towards people. These are very good qualities to have. These are like your superpowers. So the kind of person that you become, you're reading, you are learning, you're constantly evolving. That is one high that you get in this sector. The second thing is that you sleep very soundly. You get a very sound sleep because you understand that your work has made a difference in some way or the other. You have spoken to somebody who needed help or needed guidance, or you were working with, and that person is now a better person, I would say, or doing better or doing well for themselves. So you feel that kind of job satisfaction that you otherwise don't get directly. You don't see the direct impact of your work in many organizations. But here in the public sector, in the public impact space, public policy space, or the social impact space, there is a high chance that you will be able to understand the kind of impact that your job is bringing. And that makes you very relieved, very relaxed, and it gives you a sound sleep, because it is a job of honesty, it's a job of passion, and it's a job of pure skill. So it is always very good. So these are the two added advantages that you get besides the money. And I would say to all youngsters who are listening to this, do give it a chance. You will like it, trust me.
Sounds really powerful, actually. You know, you get a very sound sleep. You are creating so much of impact in other people's life. So obviously, you feel that, yeah, you're doing something good with your life, and that nothing more amazing than that, right? Uh, and what would you consider to be the essential skills as a starting point for someone aspiring to enter this field?
I would say five things. Five things are very important. Five skills. First is curiosity. You should be willing to know things, how things work, what happens, kya hota hai. So getting knowledge, gaining expertise, gaining knowledge requires you to read a lot, talk a lot, speak to different people, and the willingness to listen. You have to listen to people. So that is very important. So first thing is curiosity. Get to meet people, talk to people, get knowledge. Second thing is writing and research. I think writing is something that you should have. Writing, speaking, and research. So basically communicating. Whichever field you are in, this is not just for the social impact space. Whichever field you are in, you should be writing well. I think that's a very useful skill to have. Speaking well, that's a very important skill to have. you know Writing can be as basic as a text message, or I'm not saying you write poems or essays or stories. If you do that, it is a very good thing to do. But if you don't, even writing, knowing how to write a proper email, proper message, how to be courteous to people, I think that sort of thing is very important. So writing, speaking, how you speak, how you behave. You may get a lot of chances where you have to speak to a large audience or a small meeting or wherever. So you should be open to that. So communication is very important. Curiosity, communication. Third is people. You should be able to work with different sorts of people, be open to different mindsets, different attitudes, different values. There are people who are very different from what we are in person. And as human beings, we need to work with different people. We should have that skill, that kala of working with different people, getting everyone together, regardless of their faiths, their color, caste, whatever it is, backgrounds. You should be open to everyone. So having that open mind is the third very big thing, because it helps you get knowledge, get insights, get a lot of things. Fourth is a genuine passion to do something good with your life and for others' lives. This is very important. Sometimes you usually get stuck with our lives कि यार मेरा अच्छा हो जाए बस सब ठीक है. But you should also have that passion to bring a change, bring a smile to other people's lives, bring some sort of light to other people's life. That passion is important. A very useful skill to have. And fifth, and the last, and I think the most crucial, is knowledge. Gain knowledge, gain expertise, be an expert in what you are doing. Experimenting, like I told you earlier, is one thing. You can experiment, you can do this. कि मैंने experiment किया, but जो भी आपने experiment किया उसमें एक तो आपने अपना best दिया, and secondly आपने सबसे ज़्यादा उसमें knowledge gain करा. So you have to be an expert in whatever you are doing. Whether it's writing a message, there should be nobody in the world who can write a better message than you. If you are on a call, it should be the best conversation for the other person. So very small things, but you should be best at it. You should get that sort of knowledge, competence, and other expertise in what you are doing. So I think these are the five things that I would say are very important as skills, but not just in the social impact space, generally in life. And these are like useful life skills to have.
Exactly true. These are very useful life skills. I think communication is something that's really powerful across all the five points, right? Because when you're communicating, it should never be about myself, right? My communication should not be something that is like it's for my benefit. It should be something, when you're communicating to someone, it should be about the other person, how that is perceived, right? I've actually done a training on communication. It's like we believe that when we write our resumes that we have very good communication skills. It's not so. You learn when you're talking to people and you receive feedback that I received your feedback negatively. Maybe you did not mean it, maybe, but you were not thinking about the other person. So that is something that's very important. You should have that empathy. You should develop your communication skills, and you should keep developing that. You develop your knowledge. So
and one last thing, I would say the sixth thing, the sixth superpower, so to speak, is the ability to withstand failure. Okay, this is something that is very important. We all fail. There are nobody has been a success throughout their lives. We may see their stories like that कि वो ये तो बहुत successful हैं या क्या life है क्या journey है, but everyone faces failure. It's how you face it and how you move on from failure which is important. I'll
You
give
have
you
to
an
move on.
example. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'll give you an example. you know Most failures happen, I think, in this space, when you are starting to work, or when you are growing in your career, or when you're finding your first job. A lot of our failures happen in the stage of interviews, right? I think all of you will agree with this. We've all found failures. Kabhi na kabhi koi interview to aisa gaya hai ki yaar, this was like bad. Sometimes you are sitting in an interview and you know ki yaar yahan nahi hone wala, because I know I've screwed up and this is like a very bad place to be. So I think, and this is a very small example, like an interview, but you will find bigger failures in life. A project may come crashing down. An idea that you thought was very good did not work. People said ki, oh, this is useless. But you will find a lot of failures. You need to accept it. You need to, first thing is acceptance. You need to know ki, ha, this is failed, this is not right. Whatever comes with it, you withstand it, and you move on. You have to move forward, not backward. Any failure should not keep you down, should not make you feel depressed. Cry as much as you want for 1 day, 2 days. Cry all that you want, not in front of others, alone. Go to a washroom, go to your place, wherever you are. Go to a tree, go to a park. Cry as much as you want, but not in front of others. Don't let other people, especially your family members, feel your failure. And be genuine, because this is a life process. All of us, Mahima, anyone has faced failure at one point of life, and that's how we move on. So cry for 2 days, cry it out, but then move forward. It's not the end of life. Tomorrow is another day, and you'll have many other avenues, many other opportunities. Change your stream if you want, change your organization if you want, but move forward. And that way your journey continues. And trust me, after 2 years, no matter what failure you have faced in life, what the biggest failure you have faced in life, after 2 years, just give it 2 years. After 2 years, you'll be looking back at this failure and laughing. The thing that you are crying the most about, you'll be laughing at it after 2 years. Oh my God, this was such a small thing and I was crying so much. This is like embarrassing. Trust me on it. No matter how big the failure is, it always feels, it's like a diminishing thing. जिस दिन होता है उस दिन सबसे बड़ा लगता है, अगले दिन थोड़ा कम लगता है, उसके अगले दिन कम लगता है, and eventually after 2 years it will be just like a memory for you. It won't even count for you. So just give it 2 years. Don't lose heart. I have had many, I have had a very distinguished sort of experience in my life. I have faced many bad interviews, and bad interviews from my end where I knew that I was not, good enough. There was a dream job that I had applied to, and this happened fairly recently to me. I'll not kid you about this. It happened to me fairly recently. I'm in the communication space. I speak to people. I'm all the gyan that I'm giving you, but I was sitting in an interview of one of my dream jobs, and I could not perform very well. I could have said, oh my God, this is like a blot on me, and this is so embarrassing. The people that I had applied to, I mean, they are my friends. I mean, I knew them. And it was also a loss of face because I could not perform very well. But you move on, and there will be different opportunities. Almost a year or two have passed since that happened, but now I realize, oh my, okay, it was one interview doesn't, it's not a testimony to my skills. If you do something bad in one interview, it doesn't matter. So improve, learn what your mistakes were, but move forward. I think that's again a very important skill to have in life and in general. You will also find in many places where your ideas may not get the kind of reception you wanted, or the projects may not work as you wanted, but eventually everything will fall into place. Have trust in the power of nature. So accepting failures, moving from failures is the one skill that everyone must have.
Exactly. Very true and very positive as well. So all of us have, bombed in interviews in life somewhere or the other. You just have to move on, learn from that experience. Don't think that of yourself as a failure. You just need to move on.
Yeah.
And 2 years down the line, you
Yeah.
laugh about it.
Yeah.
Very true. And lastly, drawing from your experience and success, could you share the qualities or skills that you believe have contributed to your achievements? And do you have any other valuable tips or advice for those who are trying to become a communication expert?
I think for me, I think again, this open-mindedness, I think it came from my childhood because of the diverse experiences that I have, the different schools that I changed. But that openness to listen to new ideas, new thoughts, working with different cultures, appreciating different cultures, cherishing the diversity that we have, cherishing the difference of thoughts. That's always very useful. So that's one skill I think that has helped me a lot. I can now gel with people from different backgrounds, virtually or in person. I feel that connect with people, and once you feel that connect, the other person also responds. So I think developing that sort of a thing is important. The second thing, as I said, is failure. You know, uh, Everyone faces failure. I have also faced a lot of failures, but you should take failures with us. Cry all you want. Cry, learn, and then move on. But crying is important. So, cry, but take things with a pinch of salt. Take things with a sense of humor. So develop a sense of humor about life. What is happening is ठीक है, मतलब not everything is in our control. Some things in our control. Give your best, but not everything will be in your control. So take things with a sense of humor, develop a sense of humor about things, and it always keeps you in a good pace. So be optimistic, try to be happy, try to come up with humor, use humor as a mechanism to cope up with things. I think that helps me a lot, smile and all. And third thing is keep moving on. Know that everything is temporary. Whatever, don't take life very, very seriously, because we all have our limitations. We all have different things that we do, but we need to move on all the time. Keep moving forward, but don't take things very seriously if something bad happens to you or something sad happens to you. Keep moving on. हो जाएगा, ठीक है, कुछ हो गया. Keep moving on. So be your own best friend. Be your own, biggest supporter. If you are not supporting yourself, who will support you? You have to first find that spirit. Ki, हाँ यार, I am with myself. Then my family is with me. Everything is fine. So keep moving forward. I think that skill is very important. And lastly, knowledge. Keep gaining as much knowledge, information you have. I think this has resonated throughout all the questions, I think. But the more knowledge you have, the more skills you have, the more competence you have, the more confident you will be of delivering, of working, of being with people. Suppose you are, and this is, I think, for all of you, if you're good at sports, imagine a favorite sport that you have, be it cricket or badminton or whatever you play, what racing or whatever. If you are good at it, you feel that confidence when you're walking into that pitch or that ground or that court. You feel that confidence ki, theek hai, I may not be the best. There will be people who will beat me to it, but I think I'm giving my best. I think I'm doing very well, in my own capacity. So that confidence you should always have in work also. And how will it come? If you have a genuine interest for that field, if you have a genuine interest in your subject, and if you're reading, if you're gaining knowledge, if you know what it is all about. Bas, that's all that matters.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. This entire interview, your passion has come through for your job, and this is what is required, right? If you're passionate about something, you'll be very positive in your life, you'll be happy in your life, and it'll actually enhance your work. That you will try to create more impact. You try to yeah, it's so amazing. So I hope that people will hear this, not even just people who are trying to get into the social sector, in life in general. These are some really great tips that you've shared, and thank you so much for your invaluable insights. And I hope people hear you and they chase after their passion and reach for their dreams. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Mahima, for this opportunity. And I was only reflecting your positivity. So it's always good to meet people like you who are doing great work. And I do wish you all the best. I think the great work that you're doing, please continue with it, because a lot of people need it. A lot of youngsters need it. And again, to all of you who are listening in, we are always there for you. Please do reach out. Please do feel free to connect with us at any time. And I do hope this was an interesting conversation for you. You gained something. And I hope this is the start of a long relationship that all of us have. And wishing all of you a great future ahead. Trust me, you are all stars destined to shine. It's going to be a great journey ahead for all of you. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.